Good afternoon. Welcome again. With me today I have Mr. Ryan Steyer, Tuscarawas County Prosecuting Attorney. We have a little bit of information to update at this time. Late last evening, Chief Deputy Campbell and Detective Couts from Coshocton County interviewed Robert Clark. He has confessed to his part of the murder of the Chumneys. Today, Ohio BCI have personnel going there to process the van that was driven by Mr. Clark. And I want to correct one thing. I believe yesterday I told you it was Robert Clark's vehicle. It's actually registered to his mother. So they're going to execute a search warrant and process the van for evidence. Coshocton County authorities are in the process of making arrangements to bring Mr. Clark back here to this county from Arizona. And Coshocton County also will be arranging for a more in-depth press release in the future. That's not been set yet, but they're going to take care of that. So from the law enforcement part, that's my part, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Steyer for his comments.
Thank you, Sheriff. Let me first say that I've prepared a few comments for this afternoon, but I can't ethically comment on any of the details of the facts or the evidence of the case. I can only comment on the legal procedure. And so, first, I want to echo the Sheriff's sentiments from yesterday. In terms of the teamwork from the multiple jurisdictions involved in this case, it's been nothing short of extraordinary and critical to solving these horrific crimes. The teamwork of Strasburg Police, both counties' sheriff's departments, both Tuscarawas and Coshocton counties, Ohio BCI has had countless agents working on this, and then lately the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, and multiple sheriff's offices and police departments from across the country, really. On behalf of the multi-jurisdictional task force, I also want to mention that our deepest sympathies go out to the family and the close friends of Doyle and Lilian Chumney. In terms of the procedure for purposes of prosecution, both the Coshocton County prosecutor, Jason Given, and I have been working literally side by side since the moment we learned that these crimes spanned both of our counties. And we've agreed that each office will continue to work together as a prosecution team to the conclusion of both of these cases. Under Ohio law, this matter could be venued or prosecuted in either county, but we've further agreed that we will prosecute this matter in Coshocton County and there are several good reasons to do that, not the least of which is that it is very clear that the murders occurred in Coshocton County. In terms of the next steps of the prosecution that I'm permitted to comment on, I learned this morning that Jeffrey Stewart, his case in Coshocton County, has been bound over to the grand jury. He has waived his preliminary hearing, which is not unusual, especially in a case like this. And so that is the next step in Mr. Stewart's case. I also learned before coming in here, it's my understanding that Bobby Clark has waived his extradition in Arizona, meaning I wouldn't be surprised if he arrived in Ohio within a week. The details of that are still being worked out. When he arrives in Coshocton County, he'll have to answer to the arrest warrant that has currently been issued by the municipal court. And in his initial appearance, the judge will establish a bail, and the matter will be scheduled for a preliminary hearing, just as it was in Mr. Stewart's case. In terms of the next steps of the prosecution, we will be meeting soon with the family of Doyle and Lilian. That's a very important next step. We will be compiling the vast amounts of information from all the investigative agencies. There's a lot of witnesses, as you might imagine, and a lot of evidence. And then we'll be preparing the matter to present to the Coshocton County Grand Jury. That's the extent of my comments. If the sheriff has no other comments, I think we're prepared to field some questions at this point.
Well, let me just ask you a question. When you meet with the family, are you giving them information, or do you want input from them about what they're looking for in terms of justice?
You know, it's really both. Ultimately, it's the responsibility of the state of Ohio to decide what manner we're going to proceed, but it's certainly with the input of the family. And so I can't comment specifically on that, certainly without talking to them first, and even after having spoken with them. You know, the question we've been asked a lot is this going to be a capital murder prosecution? And what I can say about that is that, first of all, as I think most of you know, Ohio is a state that permits the death penalty. And that is a function of Ohio law. That's in the revised code, which are the laws passed by the legislature. You know, certain cases fit within the criteria for eligibility. And then after that, it's a matter for the grand jury to decide ultimately whether to append a capital murder specification on in the indictment. And if the grand jury does hand down such an indictment, ultimately that would be a decision for the petit jury or the trial jury.
From your experience and prosecutor, understanding the criteria for a death penalty case, are there elements of this case that fit the criteria?
Well, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to comment because necessarily that would be an implied statement of the facts. You know, a lot of facts have been released, and you know, you could look at the revised code yourself, and specifically 292904, and see if there's any of those criteria that are met in your view. But ultimately, understand, it's a question for the grand jury. 9 grand jurors, or at least 7 of the 9, would have to vote that in their opinion and their conscience that there's probable cause that the facts fit within at least one of those criterion.
Sheriff, do you believe right now that you have everybody in custody who's responsible for the murders of Doyle and Lilian Chumney?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the connection of Clark and the other 2, Hazel and Callie, were high school friends or anything along those lines?
What I understand at this point is that they were all in Canton. I don't know if that's where the friendship began or their acquaintance. Back past that, I really don't know, but I know it began in Canton. That's where they got in the van with Clark and left the area.
And do you know why he continued to use the same van all the way through his crime spree?
I don't, but I'm glad he did.
So these others, are they willing participants? They're not charged with the murders. Were they in some way coerced into doing this? What can you tell us? Anything at all?
I'm not aware of how or why they got in the van with him. They're involved with the armed robberies. They have no connection to the murders, but they're involved in armed robberies in other states at this point.
Do you know Robert Clark purchased that sawed-off shotgun shotgun that we've seen and bullets after the murder in Canton?
I do not know.
Is there a timeline between when they were abducted to when the car was found, and like what we know happened, as far as like where they were?
That information is being developed. It's part of the ongoing investigation. I think I'll say like I did yesterday, I really don't want to go deep into the evidence at this point, but yes, that's all things that investigators have put together.
Is there a motive established yet, or is that still?
I don't know officially, no.
Sheriff, just away from the badge almost, and just as a human being and a resident of this county, does it satisfy you that these individuals have offered statements in this case, and that from a law enforcement, well, from just a human perspective?
What do you mean by satisfy me?
That they apparently, I mean, you began the news conference today by saying that they've confessed, that he's confessed.
Yes.
Does that satisfy you, or does that give you some peace of mind?
Yes, I'm glad they're in custody and off the streets and they can't victimize any more people.
Sheriff, can you talk a little bit about just the combined effort from law enforcement across the country to catch these people? Because we were kept up to date by the minute through law enforcement. Can you talk a little bit about just the overall effort and how you felt, how everybody really came together to catch these people?
The effort and cooperation was outstanding from the very beginning. I mean, the minute the call came in to Strasburg Police, we responded. BCI had agents on the scene to do the crime scene, and it just grew and expanded from there as it developed and went into Coshocton County. Then they're on board, and so it's just continued that way throughout the local, county, state, and federal law enforcement agencies.
It seems to me that it's kind of strange how they were able to stay under the radar for so long, for a couple days, in that green van when the truckers were looking for them, when law enforcement was looking for them. How did they do that?
Good question. If you've ever started to look for a green van, you see them everywhere. But how they've actually hid, I don't know. I don't know if they holed up for a while at a certain place and no one noticed. I really don't know. The thought that crossed my mind is the robberies were pretty much at night. They got caught at night, and this is just my opinion, it has nothing to do with anything, but maybe they traveled at night and parked somewhere in the day. I don't know. I really don't
Talk
know.
about what was taken out of the house at all?
Speaking of that green
Go
van,
ahead.
Sheriff, you've got
Sorry.
about half a dozen already.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Jump
I
in.
have a few questions about myself. The green van, again, was that just because of a national general, BOLO, or did the FBI have reason to believe they were in Mojave County at that point?
I still don't know that answer. I don't know what, I would have to ask the FBI if they had information that caused them to go specifically to that county. I know in general they were putting out the information across the United States.
What do we know about the autopsy in the coroner's report? How were they killed?
I don't know we have any of those results yet that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's not unusual that an autopsy report takes
But by now you
several
don't know if
weeks
they
to
were shot
come
and
back.
killed or not?
It's not something the prosecution can comment on at this point.
I don't know. I've not been told, so I don't know that's even available.
But without the autopsy, how do you know they were killed in Coshocton?
Well,
Guessing.
we have evidence that I'm not going to discuss that's helped us with that information.
Sheriff, if you said they confessed, is it a big deal now to tell us what they delivered to the house, if they've already confessed? I mean, from the standpoint
Yeah.
of people want to know why they chose
Okay.
them and not the,
I'll wait. I don't want to answer that. I think at the Coshocton news conference, probably more details will be available to you.
For the prosecutor, you keep talking about the grand jury, but at the same time, can the prosecutor make a recommendation, and is it fair to say you would consider the death penalty?
Ultimately, it is the prosecutor who makes a recommendation to the grand jury. That's generally how it works. It would just not be appropriate for me to comment right now on how we're inclined to proceed, and most likely the public and the media would find out if there will be a death penalty specification in the indictment when the grand jury would indeed hand down such an indictment. when and if.
Clearly being very, very careful with facts, understand that, but from our standpoint, but can you articulate how important it is for you to make sure that in this case, because of the gravity of this situation, that this is done properly and appropriately the whole way? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, all I can say is you're absolutely right. I mean, this is clearly a horrific crime. I think everybody in the community realizes that. And it is of utmost importance to make sure we've marshaled absolutely all of the available evidence and information, make sure that we've consulted thoroughly with the family members and consulted with each other as the prosecution team before making that decision. It is of utmost importance.
When you say they confess to the murders of the Chumneys?
Yes,
Both suspects?
yes.
So, prosecutor, I know what you said about the death penalty, but would you say it's on the table?
Yeah, I think it's already been said that, you know, it's on the table, but I guess it really matters, it really depends on, I guess, what you mean by that. I really can't say much, I can't say much more.
Is it a possibility in this case?
I can't say much more than it's a function of Ohio law, and it's a matter of whether the grand jury would conclude upon our recommendation that it applies to this case.
Did either one of the suspects say, "I'll admit my guilt if you take the death penalty spec off the table"? Was there any plea bargaining attempt done at all?
It's frankly far too early, you know, to engage in plea bargaining. We frankly were waiting until Clark was caught before, you know, at that point we were confident that we would have most of the information in. So bottom line is I couldn't comment on that if I knew the answer, but in any case, yeah, we're just getting started in the prosecution process, and so that's about all I can say about
They've
that.
kind of ruined their chance to bargain by saying, "I did it, I'll tell you what I did," and you've already cooperated. You already have all you need from them.
What I will tell you is this. No promises were made with regard to their prosecution in exchange for their confessions.
Is there reason to believe, besides the three armed robberies that we know about in West Virginia, Georgia, Ohio, that they committed any more along the way between there and the desert of Arizona?
I'm not aware of any. Again, that's part of the wrapping up the investigation.
The two investigators are out there talking to the other two. Are they indicating that they were forced to go and do the robberies? Because we have, the videos of them in the stores with weapons. Are they indicating anything about being somehow coerced?
The only information I have from the detectives was just before I came in here, and it was simply that those two are cooperating. I don't even know what that means at this point, but so I don't have any details on that.
Clark was on parole, but he was being supervised, but he was within the parameters. But being on parole, does that play a role in any of this?
Yeah, all I can tell you with regard to that is that it helps the extradition process. But with regard to how he may be charged, I can't comment on that. Now, I think we have time maybe for a couple more questions, if there are any.
I'm good.
Okay.